brighter the light, soaring like eagles on wings of flight. Have you not known him? Have you not heard? God is creator o'er all the earth. Lift up your eyes and see his great might. Soar like an eagle on wings of flight. Saints, lift your voices, though dark your days. Lift up your spirits, sing out his praise. Upward the calling, brighter the light, soaring like eagles on wings of flight. Some will grow weary, sin they'll pursue. Servants of God, their power he'll renew. Lift up your eyes and see his great might. Soar like an eagle on wings of flight. Saints, lift your voices, though dark your days. Lift up your spirits, sing out his praise. Upward the calling, brighter the light, soaring like eagles on wings of flight.
I'll now read Ed's obituary. It's in the program that you have if you'd like to follow along. Edward Lee Smith, September 25th, 1934 through September 7th, 2021. Edward Lee Smith was born September 25th, 1934, in New Martinsville, West Virginia. He was the son of Earl Orville Smith and Mary Ella Wheeler Smith. He had an older brother, Harold, and a younger sister, Patricia. Due to his father's job in construction, the family traveled and lived all over Ohio. Eventually, they landed in Hopedale, Ohio, where his father was hired at Hanna Coal Company. During his youth, he spent a lot of time hunting and fishing throughout southeast Ohio. He loved to learn and play sports and was an all-around active young man. Ed had many jobs, constantly working for neighbors and the community. He graduated from Hopedale High School in 1952. From 1952 to 1955, Ed served our nation in the United States Navy. He was stationed in Maryland, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Florida. Ed was very proud to be an aviation mechanic for the Navy. When he was stationed in Florida, he and his fellow servicemen rode and raced their motorcycles. He would often ride his motorcycle home to Hopedale to see his family. After being discharged from the Navy, he worked in the coal fields of southeast Ohio as a diesel mechanic from 1955 to 1957. In 1957, he attended Bowling Green State University utilizing his GI Bill, where he acquired his Bachelor of Science, majoring in geology. During this time, he attended field trips, traveling the country, studying all elements of geology, including land formations of the national parks. He loved it so much, he taught anyone who would listen. His family enjoyed traveling and learning from him. After graduating college, he went to work for the Bureau of Public Roads in Santa Fe, New Mexico. His attention to detail and knowledge provided a good background for his job in material testing for the interstate highway system. In 1963, he moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where the Insurance Company of North America, INA, hired Ed as a multi-level claims adjuster. He was transferred to Toledo, Ohio in 1964. While there, he developed a love of skiing and was a member of the U.S. Ski Association, as well as the race chairman of the Toledo, Ohio ski team. In 1967, he was transferred to Reno, Nevada to establish the INA office there. There he met Dale Porter, who also worked in insurance. Dale taught Ed the Word of God, and Ed later was baptized and became a faithful Christian. Dale also believed that Karen Itza, who was engaged to another man at the time, scandalous, was the perfect person for Ed. The third time Ed saw Karen, he told her he was going to marry her. They were married December 20th, 1969. The Reno area was a perfect location for Ed. He became a Christian, met the love of his life, and skied every chance he could. In 1970, Ed was transferred to the Sacramento INA office. Shortly after, Karen and Ed had two sons, Ryan Edward and Damon Earl. Ed retired as a property claims manager in 1993. Ed lived a full, active life serving God, helping others, and spending every moment he could with his beloved family. He will be greatly missed. Now we'll have a short slideshow.
Ed was always kind when I would teach the congregation a new song. That last song that we heard, when I taught that to the congregation, he was pretty vocal about how he enjoyed that song and liked that song. He would tell me that on numerous occasions. He would also, once he told me a song that I led that he didn't like, too. And I haven't led that song since, but he had a compelling reason. This song that we're going to sing that's been selected might seem interesting to you for a memorial service. But it's a song of promise and faith and hope that we have through Christ as we live here. And that's the same promise, faith, and hope that Ed has now realized. And so I think it's a very appropriate song. Karen chose it because it reminds her of Ed. Ed loved God's creation, and he loves Jesus, and I could not agree more. I think this song does remind me of Ed, and I think we can all say that. Blue Skies and Rainbows. Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven are what I can see. When my Lord is living in me, I know that Jesus is well and alive. Today he makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Green grass and flowers all blooming in springtime, works of the Master I live for each day. I know that Jesus is well and alive. Today he makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Tall mountains, green valleys, the beauty that surrounds me, all makes me aware of the one who made it all. I know that Jesus is well and alive. Today he makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part.
Karen asked a couple of us to come up and share some memories about Ed. When we heard the news about Ed's passing, Teresa did two things. She let out an audible gasp for the family, of course, and then said, I think the last thing that Ed said to me was teasing me about the blonde joke about the sticker on my car. And we talked about it, and she is convinced that was the last thing that he said to her. And for those you don't know, Teresa, when she got her first car, as the boys know, was a beautiful bright red Volkswagen Bug. And she got a little license plate sticker on there that said California Blonde. And she was so proud of that sticker. Ed looked at it and said, blonde is spelled wrong. And that's the joke, Teresa. You don't understand that it's spelled wrong. Teresa to this day says it was spelled right. Ed to this day said it was spelled wrong. I don't know if any of us have ever seen it to be able to say who was right. And I'm not willing to take sides. But I think that goes to show the relationship that Ed had with those around him. Teresa's maiden name is Kipke. Kyle is here too. The Kipke family and the Smith family were really close growing up. Skiing, attending church together, did many things together, right? And so they were really, really close. I came into the picture really late and towards high school years. And had a lot of great memories of those times of all of us growing up together. But I didn't really know how close Ed and the Smith family was to Teresa until it was time to ask Teresa to marry me. So I went through the gauntlet of talking to Teresa's parents, which was really intimidating. I went through the gauntlet of asking my parents to get married, got through that. The hardest part was actually getting Teresa to say yes, and so I thought I was home free. That Sunday, we come to church, and I'm proud this is happening. Teresa said yes. Everybody said yes. Ed came up to me. I thought he was to say congratulations. I put out my hand. He shook my hand, and then he pulled me in really close, and he squeezed my hand really tight. And he said, "You better take care of her." And because we all know Ed is a jokester, I kind of laughed. I was, ha. And he pulled me a little closer and held a little tighter. And at that point, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the two boys were surrounding behind me at this point. And he peered into my soul and said, "You better take care of Teresa." And afterwards, he let it go. He laughed. But the gravity of what he said to me still ring true. And I think that really tells how Ed cares about those around him. He really cared about those kids and a lot of us that are here today. For those kids especially, Teresa's dad was not a Christian, and so he was really integral in their lives, early in their lives, and he actually baptized Teresa, and so I know that they hold a really special place. In fact, to this day, I think that Ed is actually the only one that can make blonde jokes about Teresa and get away with it. And so I look forward to someday to actually finalizing this debate on, was it E on the end or was it just end in a D on this blonde joke? We miss Ed very much.
Good morning. For those who don't know me, my name is Scott Gardner, and I sat down with Karen earlier this week, and she said, "Here's some things that I want you to share," and I'm going to throw a few of my own in there as well. I have had the pleasure of knowing Ed and Karen and Damon and Ryan for over 50 years. I was 9 years old at the Carmichael Church of Christ when we became members there in 1971. And I always remembered them as Ed and Karen. I mean, that's the picture up there earlier, a couple of them together. I thought, is that not the most beautiful couple you've ever laid your eyes on? Wow. And I, too, could share a lot of stories. I have a lot of beautiful memories out at the pond, doing so many great things. But we want to get out of here at a reasonable time. So I'm going to get right to it. So where do you start? Because I think every good story has a beginning. I didn't know Ed prior to Karen, so let's start there. Karen told me that their love story was a Hallmark love story. Now, if you're familiar with the popular and predictable Hallmark movies, that flood your TV every holiday season, you know the story. And it goes something like this. Boy meets girl. Girl's already engaged. Boy says, "I don't care. I'm marrying you." Girl says, "You can't marry me. I'm engaged." Boy says, "I don't care. When's the girl?" Broken-hearted boy drives off into the sunset. That was Ed and Karen's love story. To a T, and I know it was already read by David a moment ago, but that's exactly Dale had a big part in this. Dale introduced the both of them, and that's all it was. Ed said, "I'm marrying her," and the rest is history. They spent 52 beautiful years together. Actually, it was 51 years and so many months, and when Karen went to correct Ed, he said, "No, it's 52 years." A few years later, Ed and Karen were blessed with two strapping young boys, Ryan and Damon. And I know that the both of you hold very dear stories within your heart, memories of your dad. But there's a few that your mom asked me to share. They say that a father is the first superhero of every child. When the child grows up, the father wears a lot of hats. He's trusted friend, he's mentor, he's guide, he's cheerleader, he's honest critic. Ed was all of these and so much more. And he had a unique way of enlightening you. I'll give you an example. Let me ask you all a question. When you go out to a dinner, what do you use your napkin for? Wipe your face. Ed had another use for a napkin. He would often write words of wisdom on these napkins, and it usually had something to do with the conversation at dinner. Maybe it was finances, maybe it was retirement, maybe he was talking to the boys about future planning or just home care or simply life itself. But he would write something down, and Karen actually shared one with me, and then he would hand it to the boys, and I imagine they probably got a few tucked away. It was his way. And I made a connection with that when I got home the other day, and I remember Ed at many times talking with me, and after he would share some advice, he would look at me and say, "Son, write it down. Go write it down." I tried to. I didn't always. But he wanted me to be sure that I knew that it was written down. It was something that I could take with me in this life. I know that both Ryan and Damon enjoyed doing a lot of things with their dad, especially cutting firewood, because they heated the home with firewood. That's a great thing. Go out with your dad and cut some firewood. That was until a specific day when Ed fell out of the tree and was seriously injured. Do you know what his first concern was? To make sure Ryan calmed Karen down. That was his first concern. He then went on to spend 11 days in the hospital, and I think Karen said almost 3 months at home in bed. But his family was there to care for him, but they ran into another problem, keeping Ed down. You see, Ed had this way of staying busy. In fact, so much so that he would ignore his own pain and his own discomforts to make sure that you were comfortable. Did you see the picture of him on the ladder? I think that couldn't have been too long ago, and I could hear Karen right now, "Get off the ladder, Ed!" But that was Ed. Karen said that one of the favorite things the boys enjoyed were the father-son lunches at Wild Bill's Cheesesteaks. And there, I'm just assuming that they would talk about what was going on in their lives. They would listen to advice or just talk about life in general. It's moments like that that a child really inherits and takes in all the good values from their father. And the child wants to make their father proud. Damon and Ryan, you made your dad proud. You know, when it's time to become a father, your world changes more than you know. So those of you without kids, pay attention. Having children is a way of coloring every aspect of your life. You're enriched here. It's complicated over here. There's joy. There's frustration. There's pride. There's exhaustion. And often enough, there's plenty of questions and lots of confusion. A father wants his kids to toe the line, to behave. But being a grandpa can be a little different. Because you have them for a shorter time, you can spoil them more and give them back. Ed loved doing grandpa stuff. And once again, I know that only the grandkids have tucked away the enormous amount of memories that you'll have with your grandfather. But he would help them with school projects. They would help him decorate for VBS here at Folsom. They would take trips to the park. They would go on vacations. Probably one of the most recent and fondest memories, and you had a picture of it up there, was Coke floats in the garage. This was during COVID, and as most of us know, Ed had to be very, very careful with his health. But nothing was going to stop Ed from spending time with his grandkids. So out in the garage, they would go, open up the door, make sure there's plenty of fresh air, and they would sit down and enjoy Coke floats together. I might also add that Ed's meticulous way of doing things was passed on to them. Karen was telling me that Matthew has done a phenomenal job taking care of their property. And she said she asked Matthew one time, why were you doing something a certain way? And he simply replied, that's the way Papa would do it. You also know that you didn't have to be blood related for Ed to call you family. There is one very special lady whom Ed was proud to call his daughter. Teresa, you may not know this, but when you and Dama were married, and I was there because I got to tie the knot, Ed came up to me and said, isn't my daughter beautiful? He loved you dearly. Husband, father, grandpa, and friend. Look around you. There's not enough time for us all to share a story about Ed, how he impacted our lives, how he gave us advice or laughed at us. We brought up Dale. Dale was kind of the culprit in there that got them together. I'll have a little bit more to say about Dale here in a moment when we talk about Ed's relationship with Jesus Christ. And like Ed, I know I got a lot of guy friends, and we do special things together. Maybe shoot a round of golf, maybe go fishing, maybe go up mountain biking or hiking or something like that. And Ed had a very special longtime friend. It was his investing buddy, Roy. And for over 20 years, unless either one of them was severely sick, they met for lunch every week. But bringing this a little closer to home, Ed was my dad's friend. And again, while I have a number of great stories, there's a couple of Dad and Ed stories that make me laugh.